Hello, everyone. This is Julianne Williams. Welcome to my podcast, Brave Enough, Renew, Recreate, Recover You. If you enjoy my content, I would appreciate you liking and subscribing on the channel that you are listening. And also, I have a website now set up, juliannewilliams.com, where you can get all of my latest information, etc. So please join me as we do this journey together. Well, I'm asked a lot, what do you say when someone's grieving? I know when I went through the death of my husband, I think it was really hard for people to decide what they wanted to say because it was a tragic ending. But the truth is, one of the most difficult conversations to have with someone is about the loss of a loved one, a pet, a job, or anyone who's experienced a significant change. I would say most of the time, we're not sure what to say. I believe that's rooted in fear. We don't want to offend anyone, or we don't want to say something wrong. But when you're grieving, it's actually more painful when someone says nothing at all, because there's no acknowledgement of your loss, your feelings, or the hardship that you're experiencing. On the flip side, when I lost my husband, there were comments made that, I had to step back and wonder, how could a person say that? An example that I'll give you is, the day after he was found, I had someone who he worked with show up to my house and come up to my bedroom while I was sleeping and tell me that I should have never left him alone. If I would have never left him alone, I would have saved him. Arguably one of the most painful things that someone could have said to me at that time. And it's interesting to me that, sometimes we don't know what to say, but also sometimes when we're talking with someone, we are projecting feelings from ourselves, and we have to protect them and ourselves from that. So, as I experienced the loss of my husband, I also learned that, we don't deal with death and loss in an open and transparent way here in the United States. Because we don't hold death as a part of life, those feelings and expressions of the feelings that we have can be difficult to communicate, and people don't know how to react. So what I want to talk about today is, how can we grow in the ability to support someone who's grieving a loss with our words? So I want to explore some ideas with you that may help your endeavor to provide a moment of strength to someone in need and when they're really suffering. So as I said earlier, the first and most important thing to do is acknowledge there has been a loss. I promise you are not reminding them of something bad or difficult. They are acutely aware of the circumstance that they find themselves. Merely mentioning that you are aware of what they are grieving can be very comforting. And when we grieve, we don't always feel like ourselves, and it makes it easier to interact with another person when they know we aren't our best. So when you acknowledge the loss, you're actually giving that person permission to be vulnerable. And being strong is a myth. So acknowledging this at the beginning of the conversation signals that you're going to have an authentic rather than superficial conversation. Again, this relieves a lot of pressure actually for both people that are involved in this conversation. So I thought what we might do is look at some common phrases that we use when we find someone who's had a difficult time and we want to comfort them with our words. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think we say sometimes and how it might be perceived, and then give us some ideas on questions or comments to make instead. So the first one, that you get is, I understand or know exactly how you feel. We say this when we're well-meaning and we're trying to relate to the person, to whom we are speaking. But this statement does the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish, because we never know exactly how someone feels. We only know how we feel. Saying this minimizes the feelings of the person who is bereaved. I believe it also directs the focus back to ourselves instead of the person who is suffering. It can also add insult to injury when you have your spouse, child, job, pet in your life, and one of those things is something that they lost. Because when someone says to me who has never lost their husband, I understand how you feel, my answer in my mind generally is, no, you don't. So we don't want to try to look like we have the same experience. So what would you say instead? How about, I am sorry you are going through this. Or, I am sorry this is happening to you. Or, this must be very difficult. Would you like to tell me more about it? And the last one in my suggestions is, I can't begin to imagine how you feel. So again, it really puts the focus back on the person who is grieving. And even when you ask a question like, would you like to tell me more about it? You're giving that person an opportunity to talk and to express things that might help them through the rest of that day. Okay, the second one, he or she is in a better place. When you lose someone, there is no better place except where you are. So saying that they're in heaven and it's really wonderful, I understand that we mean well when we say that, but quite frankly, we still need whatever was taken from us. And we want to have the experience that we had been dreaming about. So even saying heaven got another angel or only the good die young, because I've gotten that one a lot, it really doesn't lessen the pain of knowing that you'll never see that person again. Even if the loved one was ill for a long time and the bereaved was their caregiver, no one wants to be separated from someone they love. Additionally, the person that you're speaking with may not hold religious beliefs consistent with what this phrase infers. So what can you say instead? And I'm actually going to back up for just a minute and mention that even if this is a job that someone has lost and, we say, I'm sure something better will come along. If the person is needing a paycheck and health insurance and whatnot, it's very difficult to really think about something better coming along. I think it's still better to say other things. So, what can you say? You must miss him or her. Or even if it's a job, you can say, I know that you really enjoyed the time that you worked there. The other thing that you can say in these scenarios is, something in the vein of, tell me more about your spouse, child, job, etc. Because, again, we're putting the attention right back on the person who is bereaved, and it gives them the opportunity for you to meet them where they are. And so, I really like the idea about letting them talk to you about where they are or a good memory. It really connects the person who is grieving to what they have lost in a positive way. All right, the next one is, you'll get over this in time. I am here to tell you, no person or experience can be replaced. It can really be hard to think about a future that's different from what your past has been. I know that when I lost my husband, I could not imagine the rest of my life without him. And, there was just no way that I could understand that it was a forever situation. And at that time, my life was crumbled. So when someone tells you you'll get over this in time, it just doesn't help you feel better. It actually, again, minimizes the loss that the bereaved is experiencing. The other thing is, when we say you'll get over this in time, it also can bring out a fear that the person they lost or the job they did wouldn't be remembered, and that would lose significance. So I know that I do spend time, as today we're doing it, talking about the fact that I was married to my wonderful husband, because I don't want him to be forgotten. The other thing is, if you had a really, wonderful career that brought you a lot of reward, for instance, you don't want all that time and effort and emotion that you put into maybe a big part of your life to be thought of as, a contribution that was not made. So what can you say instead? One idea I have is, this can be very painful for you. Or, I can see that you are sad and miss him or her, your coworkers, your job, your pet, whatever it is. You can also say, grief is a very individual journey, and I'll be here as long as you need me. And then the last thing is, take as long as you need to heal from your pain. Instead of saying you'll get over this in time, I think it sounds so nice to say, take as long as you need to heal from your pain. Okay, the next one. It was God's plan, or everything happens for a reason. There is no comprehensible reason to explain why when we are grieving. What if, that person, the bereaved's plan was different? Because I can guarantee it likely was. And they may even be mad at God, wondering why their loved one was taken when they were still needed here on earth, or if they have lost their home due to a lack of, income, for example, they could feel that they are being punished. So when we say something like everything happens for a reason, it's hard to see what that reason would be. So what can you say instead? It's hard to understand why things happen the way they do. One more time on that one. It's hard to understand why things happen the way they do. And the second thing is, I'm sorry you are suffering. I think those are two really good ways to communicate that you are acknowledging their grief, but also keeping it, very focused, again, on the person you're speaking with. All right, another one that we get is, you'll find someone to marry, or you'll find another spouse, or you'll get another job, pet, etc., which is a little bit of we're kind of going back a little bit to what we were talking about, but a little different spin. And for me, that's just like, wow, because it's true. People say this. It's okay. You're young. You'll find another husband. This really makes everything the bereaved cared about replaceable, and it dismisses that person's, experience or the importance as to why they're here on earth. Or again, like I talked about, it minimizes the role that someone had in their job, or, you'll get another house. Well, that maybe was their home for so long and their memories are there and they don't want to separate from it. So, just talking about jobs a little bit more. When you lose a job, it separates a person from their coworkers, and they may have been a very meaningful part of their day, or maybe their occupation provided them a very rewarding outlet, as well as obviously compensation. And I know I have made some of my most beautiful and lifelong friends at work. So it's really more than just the job sometimes. Also, losing someone or a part of our life that we are connected to is a unique experience, and I think we can find a way to recognize that. So, again, when you lose someone or a thing that was part of your life, there's this fear, and you may be afraid that all of it's forgotten. So what I was wanting to sort of move closer to, I know we talked about that everything happens for a reason, but there's, I think, a way that we can remind people that their loss is irreplaceable. So what can you say? Well, first of all, you can share a special memory. If someone said, there's nothing that makes me happier than when I see my husband's friends post pictures of growing up or things, that they did with him, because, I can show my kids and it makes me, remember that he was a really special person. So even if it's a coworker, you can say, wow, don't you remember that meeting and you presented and it was wonderful? Or, if it's someone's child, you can say, I always love watching them sing in church. Whatever it is that you can bring to them, so that what you can do is encourage the bereaved to know that this part of their life was also meaningful to you. The other thing you can say is, just tell me about your husband or child, or what you loved about your job or your pet. And again, it gives them the opportunity to talk and to share something that's a good memory that they have, and again, connects them still to the person or the experience that they've lost, so that it, again, the significance stays. And then I had a person say this to me, and I loved it, and I've never forgotten it. And it was, "You were so lucky to have had this, Alan as your spouse. I'm deeply saddened about your loss." I really loved that because it put him in a light where, it was positive remembrance, and also, recognized our relationship. So you can even say that you were really lucky to, or you were, your success in that job, you worked really hard, and you did such a great, gave so much back to the community, whatever it is, and then followed up with that you're saddened because you're standing by them. All right. We also get stay strong. Well, the last thing I felt when I was grieving, and you're actually always grieving, but is strong. Most of the time, you're just kind of existing after your loss first happens. When you tell someone to stay strong, in my opinion, you're actually placing an unneeded expectation on them. Because when you're in that acute phase of grief, it is moment by moment, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, whatever it is, but it's not strength, it's survival. And, there really aren't many other choices. The person that you're speaking with is just shattered inside. And so suggesting that they need to be any different or experiencing certain emotions or traits is just one more burden to carry. So some ideas I have: I know how much you love them. I know this must be a difficult time. Be kind to yourself. We all handle loss differently, so allow yourself what you need to grieve. All right. I also, I think something we try to do is we want to help people. And so we say, if you need anything, let me know. And again, we all say this to someone who's grieving because we have such a good intention, because we think, wow, we really want to help this person. The problem is, when you're grieving, you don't even know what you need because sorrow is engulfing your life. And because we all experience loss differently, what comforts or helps me may or may not comfort or help you. Another point to consider is some people will struggle to take care of things because they don't want to ask for help, because they already feel like a burden. So they're not going to ask. So some ideas I have on what can you say. How about, I will come and put your trash cans out for you for the next 3 weeks. How about, if it works, I'll bring dinner to you, Tuesday evening. Another idea, you call or text, I'm on my way to the store. May I pick up anything for you and drop it by? And then, any other really specific offer rather than just like a general statement of like, is there anything you need today? So that's what I think, better than just saying, let me know. Okay. Lots of questions I get on this one is, well, how did he die? Or, people, if they've lost their job or pet, or, why did they fire you? The way a person dies, and honestly, or the reason that someone has lost their job, their pet, their child, whatever it is that they are grieving, the method that it all occurred doesn't make it better or worse. It doesn't matter if it was expected or tragic. It's just, you're still missing that experience for that person. So to me, this question or curiosity of the circumstances actually can make the conversation more difficult for both parties. To be frank, it's really not your business unless the bereaved offers the information. I will share that almost 17 years later, I still get asked by people, how did my husband pass away? And, I've been very open about the fact that he took his life. But for a while, if it was people that I didn't know, I would just say he was ill. And then people would not stop there. They would say, well, then what did he have? Did he have cancer? So then I just started saying right at the beginning, he took his life. And most of the time, the person that was asking me, they really were taken aback, and it was kind of like an awkward silence. And So I think, just asking that question puts a very uncomfortable dynamic. So again, the fact that your loved one isn't here, the fact that you've lost your job, that can't be changed. How or why it happened, it has nothing to do with finding a source of healing. Even people who walk through the dying process with the assistance of hospice discover they're not ready when their loved one actually dies. So it doesn't matter why, it doesn't matter how long you've had to, quote, prepare or what the circumstance is. The pain is there, and probing someone for information that the person is not directly and readily sharing with you, it just doesn't end well. So instead, what should you say? On this one, nothing. My advice here is don't ever ask. And then, a couple closing thoughts. The absolute worst thing you can do is say nothing. And again, I know that we do that most of the time because we don't know what to say. So one phrase you can use in almost any scenario is, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry that you're having this experience. And again, it's acknowledgement. So again, in closing, the main objective here is to keep the focus of our conversation on the bereaved. When we're uncomfortable, we tend to talk about ourselves because there are really no potential landmines that we have to avoid because we know what's going on. But in all cases, my advice is you want to ask questions and give the person a listening ear. When we listen to them, we demonstrate that what they have to say is important, which is translated into them being important again and valued. And so when someone's lost a job, they may feel inadequate or embarrassed. Give them the opportunity to talk about what's comfortable for them. Don't ask them what they're going to do next. They likely haven't been able to determine how to move forward. Again, the same thing if someone's lost a parent, a child, a spouse, again, just asking them something about a memory, it just really is better than saying, well, what happens now? I also say, don't share recent successes that you may have been having or anything that would evoke more feelings of failure, especially in the case of losing a job. But it's also hard if you've lost a spouse or a parent or a child and you're having some experiences that person is now going to miss. It a little bit feels like you're rubbing salt in the wound. So I would avoid that as well. So the best thing you can really do is sit with the person who's suffering. Words aren't always necessary, and your time and presence can be the best medicine you could ever give. So I hope you liked this. If you did, please, again, like and subscribe. And if you have any topics that you might want to explore on this podcast, let me know. Again, this is Julianne Williams, author of Head Above Water, JulianneWilliams.com. Take care, everyone, and thank you for joining.